Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good to see everyone.
Hey, good evening.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Sharonda. We can go ahead and get started.
Good evening, everyone. It's January 14, 2021. It's the Orleans Parish School Board business meeting. I'll begin by reading the meeting norms. Today, we are all abiding by the CDC and the governor's guidelines for gatherings given the public health emergency. Under the circumstances and in accordance with Louisiana Revised Statute 42:17.1, allowing for public agencies to conduct meetings by telephone conference or video conference. Please note the following meeting norms before we formally get started. This meeting is being recorded for public meeting purposes. If you wish to make official public comment online regarding an item on the Orleans Parish School Board meeting agenda, please submit an e-public comment card. For smartphone users, you can scan the QR code displayed on the screen now prior to the start of the meeting or within 30 minutes after the meeting begins. The meeting moderator will announce the speaker at the appropriate time. The speaker should self-identify with the raise your hand feature at the bottom of the web page, and the meeting moderator will unmute the audio. To comment by phone, please submit an e-public comment card at go.boarddocs.com/la/nops/board.nsf/public prior to the start of the meeting or again within 30 minutes after the meeting begins. The meeting moderator will announce the speaker at the appropriate time. The speaker, again, should self-identify with the raise your hand feature by dialing *6, and the meeting moderator will unmute the speaker's audio. The speaker should state their name and address for the record. Public comments are limited to 2 minutes pursuant to Orleans Parish School Board policy. Any messages sent by the chat and or Q&A functions will be noted in the record but will not be read as live public comment during this meeting. If you need further instruction on how to make official public comment at today's meeting, those instructions may be found at go.boarddocs.com/la/nops/board.nsf/public, located on the same page where the agenda is typically posted. Board members, as you know, your lines are muted upon joining the broadcast. At roll call, to make a comment, make a motion, second a motion. To cast a roll call vote, please unmute yourself. The audio button is located in the bottom left corner of your screen. Every action item will be a roll call vote to ensure we are recording the votes appropriately. Please remember to keep your lines muted when you're not speaking for a clearer broadcast. The general format of the meeting will be as follows. Every action item will be, a recommended action will be read. I will read the recommended action, and then I'll ask for a motion, a second, followed by public comment. I'll open the floor for discussion by the board members, and then a roll call vote. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Ashley to get started.
Board Council Williams, I'm going to call to order the meeting of the Orleans Parish School Board business meeting for January 14th, 2021. The time now is 5:33 p.m. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Ashley.
Present.
Ms. Bodwin. Mr. Brown.
Present.
Mr. Marshall.
Present.
Mr. Parker.
Present.
Dr. Romero.
Present.
Mr. Zervigon.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Interpretation services are available for today's meeting. At this time, I'll yield to our interpreters.
Good evening. My name is Amelia Smith, and I'll be the Spanish interpreter for this evening. I'm just going to make a little announcement on how to access. Si hay alguien que quisiera escuchar los procedimientos en español, por favor, marque este número: 978-990-5000. Otra vez, ese número es 978-990-5000. Y el código de acceso es 707-717 con la tecla numeral al final. Otra vez, eso es 717 y la tecla numeral. I'd like to yield to my colleague, Mr. Pham. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Viet Quynh Pham. I'm a Vietnamese interpreter. I will provide a interpretation for this meeting. Xin chào toàn thể quý vị. Tôi tên là Việt. Tôi là thông dịch viên. Tôi sẽ thông dịch buổi họp này. Nếu quý vị cần, xin quý vị liên lạc ở số điện thoại 504 975 4967. Xin chân thành cảm ơn quý vị. Thank you. At this time, I would like to yield back to Mr. Ashley.
Thank you, Mr. Pham. Let's move to 1.2, Pledge of Allegiance. Colleagues, at this time, we'll ask that you stay on mute and just follow along with the previously recorded video of some of our NOLA Public School students.
Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Let's move to 1.3, adoption of the agenda. Are there any modifications, deletions, or additions at this time? Board Council Williams.
Yes, there are. Item 5.1, approval of board committee appointments. There is a revision to that item on the agenda. Under accountability, we will change Ms. Bodwan and it will read Mr. Zervigon. And for policy, we will change Mr. Zervigon and it will read Ms. Bodwan.
Thank you so much. Hearing that, may I have a motion?
Now, motion to adopt the agenda as read.
I have a motion by Mr. Zervigon. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second by Ms. Bodwin. Are there any comment cards on this issue?
None.
Hearing none, at this time, I actually yield to Board Council for a roll call vote.
Mr. Ashley,
Yes.
Ms. Bodwan,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Dr. Romero,
Yes.
Mr. Zervigon.
Yes.
The item passes.
Thank you. We're moving to item 2.1, consideration of the minutes. In this moment, I'll actually yield to Board Council to take us through this item.
Item 2.1, it's recommended that the Orleans Parish School Board adopt the minutes of December 8th, 2020 special board business meeting and the December 17th, 2020 board business meeting. May I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Parker. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Marshall. Any public comments? Any questions from the board? If not, we're at roll call. Mr. Ashley.
Yes.
Ms. Bodman.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Mr. Marshall.
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes.
Dr. Mo.
Yes.
Mr. Zervigon.
Yes.
That item passes. We're at item 3.
Thank you. We're at item 3. At this time, I'll yield to our superintendent for our superintendent's agenda and remarks.
Thank you, Board President Ashley. And good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first school board meeting for 2021. Before I get started, I want to take a moment to reflect on the national events of the past few days. I watched what unfolded at the Capitol through the lens of a school leader, a teacher, a father, and it made me think how fragile democracy truly is. But it also gave me resolve because I was reminded that our work here is to champion public education is directly linked to improving the national discourse and preserving our democracy. We are educating the next generation of strong, just, civil-minded leaders. Let's not lose sight of that as we do our daily work. Now, I'd like to reflect on this school year, where we've been and where we're headed. 2020 was a year like no other. One, I think I can safely say no one wants to repeat, ever. But we're just 2 weeks into the new year, and we're starting the new year on a positive note. Just 2 days ago, we took a huge step forward in our fight against COVID-19. On Tuesday, I'm happy to say our first 4 school nurses were inoculated with the COVID-19 vaccine, and more school nurses will receive their shots in the coming days. Additionally, we have increased our testing. We are using both PCR tests as well as rapid tests. And we have deployed mobile testing units that will travel amongst our campuses. The more we test, the better we will understand the spread of COVID-19. Knowing where it's coming from helps us to stop it from going elsewhere, especially into our classrooms. Which brings me to my ultimate goal, to return to in-person learning, not just for some students, but for all. I made this my New Year's resolution, and I still see it both as a worthy and an achievable goal. Our recent shift here in our school, our recent shift here in our school system is not a step backwards, but rather I have to remind everyone it was a necessary decision to help keep our students and our staff safe, to beat this pandemic, and to finally return to the classroom, not part-time, full-time, and permanently, and hopefully in time for next school year. To our new school board members, Katie Baldwin, Olin Parker, Dr. J.C. Wagner Romero, and Carlos Lewis Zervigon. Welcome aboard. We are excited to work with each and every one of you. We look forward to your enthusiasm as well as your fresh ideas to move this district forward. And to our returning school board members, President Ethan Ashley, John A. Brown Sr., and Vice President Nolan Marshall. Let's keep the progress going. Your work was invaluable to help our school community to continue to foster and educate our 45,000 students during this pandemic, and the journey isn't over. I have no doubt that we will come together to champion this progress we have already made during this crisis. COVID has forced us to advance our approach to using technology, for example, and I have no doubt we will continue to build on those strides. Continue good communication and cooperation with our schools and our leaders will be key to our success. I'd like to take this time to thank all of our school leaders for your dedication and your leadership during this time, all of our educators in our schools, and all of those that support our educational programs each and every day. And to our students and our families, parents, we thank you for your commitment, but more importantly, we thank you for your trust in the public school system here as we navigate through COVID-19. What we do today will leave enduring marks for future generations. So on this evening, I say to each and every one of you, let's be the part of good change our students deserve. Board President Ashley, this concludes my report for this evening, and I turn it back over to you at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Lewis. It's good to see you. And we really appreciate the welcoming remarks to get us started in this year of 2021. At this time, we will move on to our consent agenda, item 4, and I will actually yield to our board counsel to take us through our consent agenda items.
We're at item 4, Mr. Ashley. It's the consent agenda. It is recommended that the Orleans Parish School Board move to approve consent agenda items 4.1 through 4.2 as presented in Globo. May I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Ashley, a second by Mr. Marshall. Any public comments? Any questions from the board? We're at roll call. Mr. Ashley?
Yes.
Ms. Bowland?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
Mr. Parker? Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Dr. Romero,
Yes.
Mr. Zervigon.
Yes.
That item is the consent agenda approved. We're now on 5. Action item 5.1, approval of 2021 board committee assignments. Just to clarify what those assignments are, I will read them. Accountability Committee Chair would be Dr. Romero, with members Mr. Zervigon and Mr. Parker. Policy Committee Chair would be Mr. Parker, with committee members Mr. Marshall and Ms. Bodwan. Budget and Finance Committee Chair would be Mr. Brown, committee members Mr. Parker and Mr. Zervigon. Property Committee Chair would be Ms. Bodwan, with committee members Mr. Marshall and Dr. Romero. Legal and Legislative Committee Chair would be Mr. Zervigon, with committee members Ms. Bodwan and Mr. Brown. And note that President Ashley would be the ex officio member on each of these committees. And with that, it is recommended that the Orleans Parish School Board approves the committee appointments as recommended by the board president. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Dr. Romero, second by Ms. Bodwan. Any public comments? Any questions by the board? We're at roll call. Mr. Ashley.
Yes.
Ms. Bodwan.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Mr. Marshall.
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes.
Dr. Romero.
Yes.
Mr. Zervigon.
Yes.
That item passes. We're at item 5.2, resolution.
Board Council Williams, can I take a moment of personal privilege?
Sure.
While we are dealing with the appointments of committees, I want to also announce that I have the distinct pleasure of also appointing one of our members to serve on the NORD board. And that individual I'd actually like to announce in this moment, our very own Dr. Romero, to be able to serve on that board. And I'm proud that he's going to serve on that board. Both myself and Mr. Marshall have had the opportunity to serve in our last term. And so we know with all the work that he has done on behalf of young people and his commitment that he's going to do an excellent job on that board. And, you know, I'm just very, very proud to be able to announce his appointment to this board. And we're going to also, the administration at this point has told us that we will also make sure that that's on our website for all to be able to know and see. And we look forward to getting some reports and some updates here and there, Mr. Wagner Romero. Proud of you, man.
Thank you very much, President Ashley. It means a lot to me to be able to work for young people beyond the OPSB. And, you know, I often say that I'm doing this work to help to continue cultivating strong, resilient, sustainable communities. And so I'm really excited to be a part of this. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Board Council Williams.
Thank you. We're at item 5.2, resolution 02-21, Orleans Parish School Board's appointment to the NOCA Board of Directors. It is recommended that the Orleans Parish School Board adopts resolution 02-21, appointing a person to serve as the Orleans Parish School Board's appointee on the Board of Directors, New Orleans Center for Creative Arts. May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Is there an appointee that is a part of that motion, Mr. Marshall?
Okay. Yes. Carlos Zervigon.
Okay, and I believe that was a motion by Mr. Marshall, a second by Ms. Bodwan. Do we have any public comments? Any questions? Any questions from the board?
I have a remark, if it's okay.
Absolutely.
Council and fellow board members, I do want to take a quick minute before we vote on this to share for the record that we received notice from, and I'm trying to pull it up. I'm sorry, my computer restarted. It restarted my email. So the board received a recent memo from the CEO of NOCA submitting a request that we consider keeping Ms. Usden as the OPSB representative, because it doesn't have to be somebody who's presently sitting on the board. So Mr. Wedberg, that's right, thank you, is the one that sent us the request to keep her on until the end of the school year. So I just wanted to share that to the public and raise it back up to my fellow board members before we go in for a vote.
Yes, I was going to make a motion in that regard that having received the communication from the school requesting a little bit of stability until the end of this school year with the issues of COVID and so forth that they've been dealing with, that we then I'd like to offer a motion to adjust this resolution to read that the appointment will begin July 1st. That way, Sarah Usden can finish out her time until June 30th, and I could start then on July 1st, and I'd be totally comfortable with that in our spirit of cooperation with the NOCA.
Board Council Williams, at this point, is there going to need to be a friendly amendment?
There are a couple of issues that we just need to do. We've got a standing motion on the floor with the resolution as drafted, so we need to vote that motion down. A new motion would need to be made, basically giving Ms. Newell used an additional term, because the term or revision would have been expired now. So we'd have to actually give her some additional time and also make the appointment effective in July for Mr. Zervigon. Is that clear?
May I withdraw my motion?
Once it's on the floor, Mr. Marshall made the motion, I believe. Once it's on the floor, we have to vote it down. But if there's an additional motion,
as the maker of that motion, can I accept the substitute motion?
technically, we would need to have a vote on it and then do another motion.
Okay. Okay. So shall we vote?
Yes.
Board Council, what are our next steps here?
We'll take a vote, and then if there's an alternative motion, then Mr. Zervigon or whoever wishes to make that motion can do it at that time. So we're at roll call. Mr. Ashley.
No.
Ms. Beaudoin.
No.
Mr. Brown.
No.
Mr. Marshall.
No.
Mr. Parker.
No.
Dr. Wagner Romero.
No.
Mr. Zervigon.
No.
Okay, now there's open on the floor an opportunity for an alternative motion.
So yeah, let me make a motion then to nominate myself to be our representative on the NOCA's board beginning on July 1. And that part of this motion is that to grant Sarah Usden a term starting from now until June 30th.
We have a motion by Mr. Zervigon. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Marshall. No public comments. Any questions from the board on that one? We will revise the resolution in accordance with the motion after the vote. Roll call, Mr. Ashley. Mr. Ashley?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Beaudoin?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Dr. Romero?
Yes.
Mr. Zervigon?
Yes.
That item passes, and we will revise that resolution. We're now at 6.
Thank you, Board Council Williams. The time now is 5:55 p.m. May I have a motion to move into executive session?
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Marshall. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second by, I think, Mr. Parker or Zervigon or Beaudoin, whoever wants to own it at the moment. I'll yield to I'll yield to board council for a roll call vote.
Mr. Ashley,
Yes.
Ms. Bodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mr. Parker. Mr. Parker, are you?
Sorry, I'm having internet issues, but I think it's my when I say yes.
Okay, Dr. Romero,
Yes.
Mr. Zarbagon.
Yes.
We are now in executive session.
All right, calling back to order the January 14, 2021 Orleans Parish School Board Business Meeting. The time now is 6:58 p.m. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr.
Present.
Ms. Bodwin,
Present.
Mr. Brown,
Present.
Mr. Marshall,
Present.
Mr. Parker,
Present.
Dr. Romero,
Present.
Mr. Zervigon.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. At this time, I'll let Board Counsel take us through executive session items. Thank you.
The Orleans Parish School Board convened an executive session and discussed item 6.1, Orleans Parish School Board versus the City of New Orleans et al., CDC number 2019-05174, and no action will be taken at that time on that item. The board also met an executive session and discussed item 6.2, Hamps Construction LLC versus Orleans Parish School Board, Orleans Parish Civil District Court number 2012-10546. It is recommended that the Orleans Parish School Board grants the settlement authority threshold in this matter as recommended by its legal counsel. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Zervigon, a second by Mr. Ashley. No public comments on this item. Do we have any questions from the board? If not, we're at roll call. Mr. Ashley.
Yes.
Ms. Bodwin.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Mr. Marshall.
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes.
Dr. Romero.
Yes.
Mr. Zervigon.
Yes.
That item passes. The board also discussed item 6.3 in executive session, Choice Foundation et al. Versus Law Industries, Inc. et al. CDC number 2019-04385. In connection with that discussion, we are now at item 7.1, action item, Resolution 03-21, contingency contract with Fishman Haggett LLP. It is recommended that the Orleans Parish School Board adopts resolution number 03-21, authorizing its general counsel to seek Louisiana Attorney General approval to enter into a contingency fee arrangement agreement with the law firm of Fishman Haggett LLP relative to the matter entitled Choice Foundation et al. Versus Law Industries LLC et al. Orleans Parish Civil District Court number 2019-4985, and approves the attached amended joint prosecution agreement. May I have a motion?
Move.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second.
We have a second by Ms. Bodwin, and I believe the motion was by Mr. Brown. Was that Mr. Brown? Mr. Marshall.
It was Mr. Ashley.
Okay, sorry. Okay, we just want to make sure the record's correct. A motion by Mr. Ashley, a second by Ms. Bodwin. We don't have any public comments. Any questions from the board? We're at roll call. Mr. Ashley.
Yes.
Ms. Bodwin.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Mr. Marshall.
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes.
Dr. Romero.
Yes.
Mr. Zervigon.
Yes.
That item passes. We're now at 8.1.
Thank you so much. There are no more items on our agenda. At this time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. President.
I have a motion by Mr. Brown. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Parker. No public comment cards, I assume, at this point, so I yield to Board Counsel for a roll call vote.
Mr. Ashley.
Yes.
Ms. Bodwin.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Mr. Marshall.
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes.
Dr. Romero.
Yes.
Mr. Zervigon.
Yes.
That item passes.
All right, the time now is 7:02 p.m. The meeting is adjourned. You all be safe.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good evening. Take care.
Goodbye.
See you later.